Welcome to Your Time to Shine with your host, Carmen Ring.
Securing media coverage in key publications is a sure way to gain visibility and grow your business. I am honored to have with me as my guest today Amanda Ruiz. She is the expert, the ultimate door opener as she is named by her clients, and she gives inspiring and interactive workshops where she teaches her 7 secrets on how to get into the press. This is a proven process on successfully pitching to the press. I'm gonna now welcome Amanda and let her tell us more about what she does. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, Carmen. Thank you very much for the intro.
So, Amanda, why don't you start by telling us a little bit how you started your business and how you got where you are today?
Okay, so I started my business, I started my first business back in 2008 when I had my first child, Felix. My in-laws are Peruvian. We received a lot of beautiful Latino ponchos and knitwear, and I started up an e-commerce store. And what I did was, by running this e-commerce store, I remembered when I used to work with my mother's business. She was a fantastic entrepreneur based in the UK, and she secured one piece of press coverage which literally transformed her business to become almost a household name. So what I did when I was running the e-commerce store was I drew upon that knowledge of how to approach the press, how to speak to the press, and literally I was like a banshee, and I did a promotional activity every single day, and I managed to get into the press. So that was running the e-commerce store, and I ran after that a boutique PR agency where I'd help one-on-one clients secure press coverage and get some fantastic publication coverage for them. But actually now what I do, I really enjoy teaching. I have VIP clients and teaching them how to get into the press, and they really love it, and they're getting such great results. So I'm now teaching people my 7-step process rather, and it's called the 7 secrets on how to get into the press. And it's really using that proven process, learning the mistakes, which we made back, years and years and years ago, actually forming it into a step-by-step process.
And of course, without giving away your whole course, which anyway we wouldn't have time to do it, can you give us maybe just 1 or 2 pieces of advice? And let's say the first step. So if somebody has never been featured in the media before and say they own a small business, what's one thing they can do to at least get started?
Okay, I'm going to say 3 things because these are essential. Number 1 is you need to get to know, well, first of all, who is your target audience? So which newspapers, which publications, which online areas is your target audience hanging out in? Once you discover that it's, X publication, get to know that publication inside out. And then by doing that, you'll get to know the journalists, and then you'll get to know who you're going to approach and what the kind of writing style is, or what kind of type of pitch that you want to be writing to them. If that publication likes to have, the 5 essential steps on how to do X or Y, that's how you should pitch it. So get to know get to know the publication. But also, 2 more things is you need to know what makes you stand out from the crowd, because you see journalists are getting approached all the time. Every day they have about 300 to 500 different email pitches saying, hey, feature me, this is a great launch, whatever. You need to have a fantastic headline which is going to capture their attention, and once you've got their attention captured, what is it about you, the entrepreneur, that makes you stand out from the crowd? Because there are a lot of people who are coaches, and they say, listen, we have coaches all the time, but what do you do which is really special about you being a coach that's going to make us really interested in covering you?
And when you work with your clients, do you help them figure these things out too and come up with a great headline and everything they need?
Yes, I do. I mean, I had a great story. I was helping a client recently. We did an hour, writing up a press release, and we came up with this headline. It was very, very controversial, and it really, it was amazing. I'll tell you the headline. It says, I don't know if you know, over in America, this amazing reggae guy who creates sauces. He's called Levi Roots. And the lady who developed this line of African condiments, she's very beautiful, very attractive, very powerful businesswoman. So I came up with the headline, move over Levi Roots, enter beautiful young female entrepreneur. She has the secret sauce. Okay, so we got loads and loads and loads of call outs for samples and for people to feature her instantly. but also it was very controversial. I had a very leading MasterChef guy here in the UK criticise that email. So sometimes raising your head above the parapet, you're going to get shot down. But when you get shot down, you know that you're doing the right thing, because, you know, annoying people is sometimes a way to stand out. I mean, I didn't do it to annoy anybody at all, but it was just an interesting way that, you know, somebody got very offended. He said, how depressing that you're having to use somebody's looks, age and gender in order to push a product.
And I was going to ask you about this. I'm happy you brought it up. You know, it is said, I heard sometimes people saying that it's important to be visible. No matter if they talk good or bad about you, as long as you are in the press, it's a good sign. Do you agree with that or no?
No, I don't really agree with that. I mean, all of my clients want to come on board because they want to get into the press in a positive sense. So I think really, if you actually want to get into the press for the right reasons. So I don't really agree that any, you know, being visible in any manner or means is really the right way. I don't agree with that. But, you know, but trying to become visible, I call it #visible, as much as you can. It's something you really need to do, you know, an activity every single day.
And let's say somebody got, by, you know, a mistake or something, they got some bad media coverage, bad things about them. Is that fixable?
Well, it's not, well, you know, it depends whether it's been in print or whether it's online. I think if it's online and you still have a relationship with that journalist, I think it's a good idea to approach them or to approach the publication and say, hey, do you mind removing it? It's very unlikely that's going to happen. But, you know, people will say in general, when journalists write about you, because they're so rushed for time, you know, they are also human beings. Sometimes errors are made. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to contradict what I've just said. At least you are out there and you're being visible, even if it's not exactly the right thing that you told them. Some people get frustrated that journalists don't quote them verbatim, but actually I think if they've got the crux of the story, then that's a really great thing.
And what I mean is, when I said if it's fixable, I don't necessarily mean calling the journalist and get him to remove it, but maybe coming up with a new story and somehow referring to the bad one so we can fix it. And for example, I saw there was this restaurant who got a really bad review on Yelp saying worst meatballs I've ever had, worst food or something like that. And they used that in their advertisement. They said, come here and try the worst meatballs a guy on Yelp had in his life, or something like that.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah, spin it around, see what you can do and twist it around. Yeah, people, you know, when you're being, in English we call it slagged off. When you're being talked about in a bad manner online, it always is a good idea to actually speak to those people. You know, respond to them on Facebook or wherever they, you know. But you don't want to get people trolling you. That's the only problem. But no, I think that's a really good example of turning around a negative comment. So that's again being controversial. Fantastic.
Now, which media channels do you feel are the most powerful? Are we talking about maybe newspapers, radio, TV, online? Which one would you say are the most powerful?
I would actually say it depends who you're wanting to target, if that's one thing. I mean, getting onto the TV is great because it has a huge audience, but it really does depend upon your target audience. You know, people know, you know, allegedly the print, well, it is true, the print industry is kind of dying out, so people want to get much more online. So to get onto a very widely read online publication would be great for you. Getting onto the radio, now people do say, journalists do say, always try to get onto the radio because they're always looking out for stories and people to cover. So, and it's also, you know, people are listening to the radio in the car, listening to the podcast, so try that. And then getting onto the TV as an expert commentator, then that's great because you are there, you're sitting there as the expert, and you have a big live audience watching you. So yeah, I mean, I think all of the above. Just go for it wherever you think your client hangs out.
I see. And now, getting back to what you do personally, how long would you say it takes for a business owner from the moment when he starts working with you, he's never been featured on anything, until, say, he can see his name in 2 or 3 publications?
Well, it really, do you know what? It really depends on how go-gettery that very person is. So I had somebody who started with me within 6 weeks, she'd already got her client onto the BBC, onto a radio show, so that was great. It really depends on how much action you take, how fast you are at doing the homework. If you're a real go-getter, you can do it within, I think, 8 weeks. But just to let you know, being a PR, having run a boutique PR agency and me also having employed PR agents, nobody ever guarantees that you'll get press coverage before 6 months. Okay? In general, that's what you'll hear. Nobody says, I guarantee that you're going to get this press coverage, unless, of course, you've paid for it via an advertorial. So I think it's reasonable to say, in the first 8 weeks, you're going to be learning the basics. You need to get your ducks into order and go through all those steps, okay? Once you've gone through those steps, boom, you can go for it. The other girl, the one who was running the African source business, she'd literally be on my course, I think, for 3 weeks, and we got her, major publications were interested in seeing her. But she was, doing the homework. So it really depends how much you want to, how much elbow grease you want to put into it.
And let's say we are at that point, we're going to be featured in the media, we're going to have an interview or an article in a newspaper. What shall we include in there? I know usually the time, especially at the beginning, the time we're going to get in the press is very limited. We're only going to get maybe a few minutes or a very small section in a newspaper. What are the must things that we have to include in there? Do we have to maybe make an offer to the audience? Do we have to just say about our business or about previous clients? What shall we include? What's a must?
Yes, a must is really, because very often publications can't actually do a direct link to your website, because then that would be perceived as advertising. But if they can talk about your business and give, and they must mention your business name, so people who are going to go there, and then they can just look Amanda Ruiz PR, at least that's one thing people can do, even though they can't do that. But another must is just to show, your expertise. That's what I really would demonstrate that you need to show. That's really important.
To show your expertise, meaning how do you show it? Do you talk about past results? Do you talk about your customers? Do you give testimonials? How do you prove your expertise?
Yes, you can say my clients have said X, Y, and Z about me, so you can refer back to that, or you can talk, do case studies and say, I had such amazing results, what I did actually literally transformed somebody's life. Different people running different businesses, have different life-changing effects wherever it is, changing a business, There's so many different things that you can try and involve when you're having your chat with the editor or the journalist. But at the end of the day, it really is down to the journalist when they're typing it up, what they're going to be bringing in. So somebody was in the press recently and they got a bit disappointed that there was no direct link to their website. Do you know what? I think if people are, keen enough to use their services, they will definitely just do a quick Google search and find that person instantly. As long as your name, big fat must is put your name in it.
And would you say, is it a better idea to get featured, say, multiple times in the same publication, based on the idea that you're going to be seen by the same public, so they start getting used to you? Or is it better to start reaching to different audiences and in different media publications?
Yes, I think the second. So I think, if you can have a flurry of getting into 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 different publications, then you're going to be reaching far more people than just the one set of people who are reading that particular newspaper. And also it's great, A, for self-confidence, and also to get those press logos onto your website that you can claim that you've, you can legitimately claim that you've actually been featured in those very, outlets.
I see. And how difficult is it to get on let's talk now about the national channels. I think everybody would start with local, and this is what I've heard. We can start with a local magazine, a local radio station. What's the step that we can take to go from there to the national television or national newspapers?
Sure. So I totally agree with you that I always say to my clients, cut your teeth locally, because they're not going to be, they're not always going to be the best top, I'd say journalists, or rather the journalists might also be cutting their teeth as well. So it doesn't matter if you don't do a perfect pitch to the local, but on the other hand, local might be really important to your business. So start off local, and then making that leap to getting into those big newspapers or radio shows or whatever. It's the same process. It literally is. You just need to find out who is the journalist, who's the producer from that very show, and come up with a good punchy short pitch to them. So don't be fearful about approaching the big boys.
I got you. Now let's talk a little bit about press release. If you can give just again, like I said, just a couple of one or two pieces of advice of what makes a great press release.
Okay, excuse me. So great press release has a great title. Okay, now some people call it the jazz hands. Woohoo! It's going to be something quite eye-catching, rather like I've said earlier about having a great title. Sometimes people actually say with your press release when you're emailing it off, excuse me, is to put at the beginning of your email subject box, breaking news or reactive story, something like that. And then have your killer headline. So the headline is really important. If it's bland, it will just get to the bottom of the inbox, never ever get opened. That's number one. And number two is to have 3 short, sharp, punchy bullet points about your story. Okay? So that's really important because, as I said, journalists have no time in the world whatsoever because they're so busy. They're running on schedule and deadline and all the rest of it. If they could just literally scan read 3 lines about your story, great. And also ensure that you have a link to your website and a telephone number where you're going to be available at right that very second. So don't send off a press release and go off on holiday because you might have lost loads of opportunities. So make sure you've got all your contact details and you're available. And also you've got some good images. So maybe you want to have a link on your website which has got some high-res images, high-resolution images. Also, please send me an email for images. You just need to make the journalist's lives as easy as possible.
And you said, you mentioned what to put in the title when you email it. So I guess the email would be the first way you would go by when you want to send a press release. How about other ways? Is it still okay to send a press release, to drop it in the mail, or to I've heard some people saying when you mail it, just use a colorful envelope so it stands out in the mail that the other person receives. Is this something you'd still recommend or no?
Do you know what? Yes, I'm getting more and more into physically sending, ink handwritten letters on beautiful paper because people just these days aren't receiving lovely handwritten notes anymore. It's just literally email. But don't forget, if you're in fashion, the magazine they'll be getting letters and they'll be bombarded with samples every single day. So it's how can you sneakily meet that key journalist? So another idea is to go to an industry event where that person's going to be speaking at or she might be attending. You can personally hand deliver your lovely package because otherwise, you might spend all the time in the world, invest a lot of money doing a beautiful package, and again, it just gets discarded because it goes to the post boy. You never know. So and also I do also say that you should phone call people. You pick up the telephone. I know journalists will tell me off and say, no, please, we don't want any phone calls, but actually that's how I've managed to get most of mine great publicity by phoning up, and then they say, oh, have you got a press release? Go, yes, I'll email it to you right now. And a killer tip is what I do, this is a real secret trick, which is a great one. I do 3 asterisks. I go star, star, star in the subject box, just spoken to you, star, star, star. Okay, and that will get their attention because it's like, oh, I've just spoken to that woman, so yeah, I need to open up your email.
And considering we didn't speak to the journalist in advance and we're just sending a press release, how long shall we wait to get an answer? How many times shall we write again to that person? Like, how persistent shall we be with one publication?
Yes, the key thing is to be persistent and to try 3 times is what journalist friends tell me. So send an email, make sure you've got a great title, and then, wait a day. They need to go through their inbox, and then just try 3 times, follow up 3 times. And if they haven't got back to you by the 3rd time, then give up and don't harangue them anymore. And then maybe you can leave it a bit if it's a story that can be continued, and then you can just change up the subject line and see whether that changes, or approach somebody else within that publication. So don't give up, be persistent, and go for it.
Could we approach maybe another editor or somebody else from the same publication if the first one didn't answer?
Yes, because that person might not have seen it, they might not be interested, they might, it might not be their cup of tea thing to write about. So I'd definitely go and approach another journalist if it's not going to, cause any problems. But yes, just try and be creative, really, because it's your business and it's up to you to kind of go for it.
Amanda, thank you so much for all the advice you shared here. I know 20 minutes is a short time, but I know that the audience, if they want to get more of you and they want to stay in touch with you, you also have a surprise for them. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your gift to our public?
Yes, well, thank you everybody for listening. I hope it's been helpful. So I've just launched a self-promotion challenge, and I think anybody can do it at any time in the year, in the day, whatever. So it's 31 ideas on how to self-promote, because often you have a blank canvas when you think, oh my goodness, I know I need to do a self-promotional activity every single day, but actually I've got 31 ideas ready waiting for you. So shall I share the link now, or do you want to tell the link?
They're gonna have the link in the email, but just tell them also how they can stay in touch with you in the future if they wanna, get to know you better or get to work with you.
Yes, well, come along to my website. It's amandaruiz.co.uk, and then sign up. I've got a checklist, which is literally the 7 secrets on how to get into the press. So you'll see my proven process, and you can, have a go at doing that. But if you want to get in touch with me even further, send an email to me, which is hello@amandaruiz.co.uk, and I'd love to hear from you. I've also got a Facebook page, which is Amanda Ruiz. So have a hunt down for me, and hopefully we can give you some links. And I'd love to hear from you, because I also have clients over in America, international clients. So I love working with people all over the world.
And I do want to encourage everyone to go to Amanda's website, even if it's just to have a look at a great website. I went and saw it, and I was just impressed. It's in the same time simple, but so attractive and so engaging. So I do encourage everyone to at least have a look at her website. And of course, check out her free gift. Check out her, she has a few other resources on the website. And do not hesitate to contact her. She's very responsive. I did not know Amanda before getting in touch with her to do this interview, and she was very responsive. Communication was great. Just what an excellent PR person would do. Amanda, once again, thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
It's been lovely.
Thank you for listening to Your Time to Shine with your host, Carmen Ring.